whenever it goes to a certain stage, I want Kathleen to start this, to do this. And then I want Tisha to start the budget. Like these are things that we are fixing right now to make sure there's no confusion and there's no one wondering what they're supposed to do next.
Yeah. So it sounds like you guys are customizing those stages in ProLine under the production. So you have a production pipeline, just have most of our users have it. And then in that production pipeline, you're customizing out what those stages are called. And then also what tasks are being created at each stage by the associated campaign, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. I don't know if it's a misunderstanding, but we've had requests from companies that have done demos recently. They're like, I don't feel like the production management in ProLine is there. I need to be able to track jobs that are on hold, this, that, and the other. Do you think that they're just not understanding that all of that can be all those stages can be customized? Or do we need some other additional level to track beyond just having the customized stages and those? Like, is it enough, for example, jobs on hold? Do you think there just needs to be a stage for jobs on hold? Or do we need to have another system below the surface that's tracking things like whether or not something's on hold?
Well, I mean, I think it's a great question. I don't know the right answer because I think it's a conversation for that person's production process. And we've had things like waiting on result. We've had that as a stage in sales, but then also in production. Sales, yeah. And we've also had it in we've had like waiting on adjuster for if we do insurance work, which is essentially hold. You're kind of in a holding pattern waiting for that adjuster. Now, I do think that if you're doing insurance work, you should have a waiting on adjuster. If the ball's out of your court for some reason, you can't control that part of the process. There still needs to be some sort of reminder to the homeowner saying, hey, just checking to make sure the adjuster reached out to you. Just like you should still have the automations in there along with manuals for the insurance side of things. But even if it's retail, having job on hold for whatever reason, like we have one right now. We have one that like they changed the color twice. And then it's going to snow probably in Georgia on the day that they're supposed to install, we think. So, yeah, I mean, I think you could have something where it's just a holding pattern that you don't want to keep sending automations out for some reason, but.
Or you might have automations that are in place specifically for that.
Yeah.
Just update. But I think I'm trying to figure out how to ask this question or frame this question correctly. Because it's not just about it's not what stages you have. Obviously, you can add whatever stages you need for your process in ProLine. What I'm trying to figure out is, do we need to have something beyond stages? So right now we have statuses for projects, and statuses can't be customized. And the reason they can't be customized is because we use the status for calculating out KPIs like close rate and stuff like that. So it has to be consistent from a ProLine account to ProLine account. It's one of the few things in ProLine you can't customize for your account. And so right now those are lead, open, won, lost, and then closed. And we jump from the one status to the closed status. Closed status is like they're filed away, completely paid and closed, essentially. And we use these statuses in our business reports. And then you tie them to stages. So different stages will be tied to different statuses. And one of the things that I'm trying to figure out if it's necessary, I don't want to overcomplicate this if it's not necessary, but one of the things that I feel like people are asking for, they don't know exactly how the system works. So, but I feel like they need this to solve the problems that they're trying to solve, is if we added some additional statuses, hard uneditable statuses in ProLine for production related things like on hold, in progress. And the value of that is that we would then be able to create a production report in our business reports where you could run the production report and you can get metrics like amount of time in production, how that's the biggest one off the top of my head, but like current jobs that are currently on hold, how your average production time. Um, I mean, I'm sure we could come up with other
Yeah, there's a
metrics
lot of
to.
ways that could be useful. Yeah, I see that, especially guys who are installing, I mean, or in the northern climates and they're on hold for the winter. Or so if it's a summer season, um, then I don't really know why something can be on hold that long. Okay, Brian Huff is one of our clients. He's awesome. He's in Colorado, and they had a storm, had a bunch of storms in Colorado actually, and there's no material. So he's got like, I think he's got like 60 jobs or some crazy number.
On hold.
And he doesn't, the jobs are on hold because he's waiting for material. So I can see in that situation, yeah, if you're doing that, if you're doing insurance work and there's no material, or their labor is so far behind, whatever the reason is, like you're used to doing this certain volume, and then all of a sudden you had a huge influx of production needed. And that's happened to me before. We sold like 600,000. I sold $600,000 in 48 hours one time just because there was a storm in Athens. And it's like, well, that's not normal for us. So that, those jobs, we actually lost some jobs because they were so far out. We had only one crew. Anyway, those are the reasons to put something on hold. I would say there's all kinds of reasons for those statuses, those hard statuses, to add things to help with reporting. Now, I'm not going to go into much detail,
Yeah.
but I have ideas that we could talk about that would be really helpful. But I
For
don't know if
reporting,
it's
let's
right or
talk about
wrong.
it. Let's talk
Okay,
about it.
well, here's one: accurate close rate.
Well,
All
we
right,
have
so
that already. We already have
no,
that.
no, because open, won or lost. Okay. Well, sometimes there are jobs that we know are going to sell in 6 to 9 months, but they shouldn't be counted in this quarter's close rate
Yeah.
because you're going to sell them way outside of a 90-day window.
Yep.
That doesn't really help you understand. And that's a very, very common
So
question that I
what do you
get.
mark those as?
So they're still open. So they're not helping you understand your numbers really well, especially as you scale and get larger and you have a lot more leads. You're like, well, why is my close rate this either too low or too high? You want it accurate. And
Well,
I don't
that
know.
would be accurate. If you have a job that has come in and
It's not signed. It's not signed
is
yet.
not signed,
Yeah,
correct?
it's not signed.
It's not signed. It's still open. Then yeah, that should count against your close rate for that quarter because that is a job that came in. It was a lead that you did not close. Even if they're gonna close later, they're not closed yet, and they didn't close during that period.
So
But
we
the
had one
other
guy, he
the
thinks
other
his close
thing,
rate's 10%. I'm like, your close rate is not 10%, dude. It's not. You have all these open leads.
right?
And I'm like, that's not accurate. Doesn't help you to know that he's frustrated because he thinks his close rate is
So
in our
then
mastermind.
if you have so this is one reason we do differentiate between open and lead in ProLine because we don't count let me make sure I say this correctly. Your close rate is based off of your opens, not your leads. So if you have a
Okay.
bunch of leads coming in, if they never go to open, which typically the way ProLine accounts are set up, the way we do it by default is they become open once a quote is sent. So your close rate is only based off the ones that become open. It's also we calculate the close rate based on the time frame in which they became open, not the time frame in which they closed. So
Okay.
if last year, if in 2023 someone was open, became open, but didn't close until 6 months later, until they close, they're not going to count towards your close rate. But if you go back and look at that period in which they came open, a year later, it will reflect that they closed later
Okay.
because it's not based on when they closed. It's based on when they became opened. So you do have over time, as things close over time, it is going to change that close rate as you look back in time, as more of those leads that became open are able to close.
This is great.
That makes sense.
So let's repeat it one more time. And this is the framework. So if you're running a report in ProLine and you want to run like your close rate, if you're saying all of 2024 or first quarter in 2024. I've got a bunch of people from last year that I know need a new roof and they haven't replaced the roof. I know that they like one of them you saw, she came up and shook my hand. I need a new roof. She still hasn't done a roof yet. Well, so that was last year. She has a proposal. We sent it to her. She has not signed it. That is considered an open. That's open, right?
Right.
Okay.
That's
In
open.
ProLine. So is that counting towards my close rate from 2023?
That is currently, so if you look, we'll say she was in Q4 of 2023, or actually that was, no, that was like Q3. So we'll say Q3 2024, or sorry, Q3 2023. If you go back and run a report for Q3 2023, right now that is pulling down your close rate for that period
Okay.
because it has not closed. Now, if she signs it today, and then you run a new report. This is why we actually, I loved the idea, and I really tried to make this work in ProLine where the reports were just live. But the problem with that is the point at time and when you run the report is actually part of the report.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you do have to run the report because it's important to know like when that was run. So if
Mm-hmm.
you go rerun the report again, it will then have a higher close rate because that has since has closed, since you ran that other report.
So in a real life situation, likely she reaches back out to us and we rescind the contract in Q1 of 2024. So we would, at the end of March, when we run our reports, we run them more than that, but we run them at the end of March. Is she going to count towards 2024 if we
She is
run the report?
no, she will count towards your close rate in Q3 of 2023.
I have a request then. I would like to change that because we sent the contract, even though it was a lead from last year.
When did you send the
It's
contract?
if we send the contract because it's often going to be a resend. It's so common, unbelievably common that it is months down the road. I
But
have
you send the
10
contract?
later. I resend it. So we're
Oh,
resending it
resend it.
months. Yeah, we're resending
Wait,
it months later. And so at the time, and the also so many factors are going to change too. The pricing's probably going to change. Like the sales rep could change.